Okay, Carl, welcome to the viewers of this little video. My name is Jakob Munck. I'm an old man, 71 years old, living in Copenhagen, and I'm very much interested in China and in what is called geopolitics. And therefore, I've been searching for some time for some bright mind to educate me and educate the viewers, and nothing could be better than a bright mind coming from China, because we will talk about China. So I've found Carl Zha here, and well, Carl, maybe you could introduce yourself. Who are you?
Oh, sure. Thank you, Jacob, for inviting me to your show. I am Carl Zha. I'm the host of Silk and Steel podcast, a podcast primarily focused on China, history, culture, politics. I am born in China in 1976, 1 month after Mao died. So I'm the first post-cultural revolution generation that grew up in China. And I spent my formative years in elementary school throughout 80s in China. And then after Tiananmen protest ended in 1989, I came to United States as a 13-year-old to join my parents who were already studying in US as students. And then I went to high school and university in US. So I live in US for 29 years. Now I live in Bali. Thank God. Yes.
Well, Bali, I have been to Indonesia, so I know Bali, but I've never been to Bali. It's said to be a very wonderful place. So
It's beautiful. It is beautiful.
very good. Well, I've prepared a lot of questions, but I think we shouldn't talk any much longer than 45 minutes. Although
Sure.
these subjects, we can talk for a very, very long time
Yes.
about these subjects. But there is one word that is kind of running around in the media and also in my mind. It is called xenophobia. You know that word, of course.
Yes.
Do you think xenophobia has been growing the last years, and why?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, there has been a survey done on the public opinions inside United States of public perception of Americans of China. And there was a sharp rise in the negative perception of China just since 2000, in the last 3 years, since 2017.
Yeah,
There are many reasons for that. There's lot of negative media coverage coming out of China in the Western media. We have most recently we have the COVID-19 crisis that originated in China, in Wuhan, right? And then uh, what happened in China is that they took action. They did a very drastic lockdown, and now things are actually slowly returning to normal inside China itself. But whereas in U.S., the U.S. government didn't really do anything or you did a very half-hearted attempt to stop the virus. So now U.S. is COVID capital of the world, unfortunately, but people still blame uh, their own failures on China because there's a very recent recent media event. They held a pool party in Wuhan, China, the former epicenter of the corona crisis. And it
they had,
shows a lot of
sorry, what kind of party? They had a,
a pool party. It's a electronic music party.
see, okay,
A lot of young people, they dance, and
okay,
people see all these large gathering people having fun, and there was overwhelming negative comments on Twitter, on social media.
okay,
Many people, even the host of Tonight's Show, Trevor Noah, he was on record of saying, "How dare you guys? How dare you Chinese people celebrate when we are suffering over here?" But I mean, like, I think it's something we could look forward to, like look at
Yeah,
China, they contain the crisis. Now they can party, they can take off their masks. Like this is something we can look forward to if we get control of the crisis over here, and then our life can also return to normal. I mean, that should be aspirational, but instead people taking that very negatively, and they think it's somehow China's rubbing this in their face.
yeah.
I think it's a really a projection of kind of the fear and frustration of the Westerners about their own society, because their government did a horrible job containing the crisis, and now
Well, I
it's just a lot easier to blame the Chinese.
I agree. This wave of xenophobia in the media and everywhere, I think it started around when Donald Trump was elected as president. And he has a part of his electoral campaign was that now we are going to be friends with Putin and enemies with China, because the Chinese, they are our own real problem. Putin and Russia, that's nothing to worry about. And after that, the whole international picture in the media was changing. And now I would say every single day you can read in the Western papers something negative about China. And it's about everything. It's not worth going through the whole list, but
Yeah,
there's
long
actually
list.
nothing good in China at all. It's all bad according to the Western media.
Yeah.
And that is not very good, because we all use our mobile phones and
Yes.
everything, and they all come from China.
Yes.
So it's not good, and that is the problem. Why I like to talk to you,
Sure.
because we don't want this to evolve to some kind of hot war. And
Yes.
do you think there is a danger of this evolving to a hot war?
I don't think anyone wants a hot war. I mean, even the US military, I don't think they really want a hot war with China, because China is a nuclear power. China does possess capability of striking back. So any kind of a hot war escalation with China can easily get out of hand and escalate into a nuclear exchange. And then that's Armageddon for the rest of us.
Yeah,
The whole world will be destroyed. I don't think that's something people plan for, but I think the danger is that when US is ratcheting up the tensions and sending all the warships and fighter planes to South China Sea, to East China Sea, to buzzing Chinese coast, there's an increasing danger when these military forces are in close proximity to each other, that something accident might happen. And
yeah,
a unforeseen accident that could escalate into a conflict. I think that's a real danger. And there's and where do you go from there, right? And how do you climb down from the escalation? I think that should be on everybody's mind, because a hot conflict with China, like I said, could easily go nuclear in 20 minutes, and that's something I don't think anybody in the world want that to happen, because it's the end of the world as we know it.
yeah. And I think there is a very problematic thing called Taiwan. Well, many Europeans, they believe Taiwan is a separate country. They say we have China and we have Taiwan. That's two countries. What is the reality about Taiwan?
Right. So the Taiwan situation is basically a legacy of the Chinese Civil War from 1949. When the communists won the Chinese Civil War, the nationalist government and their army escaped and went to Taiwan, and where they remain a separate administration till this day. So when United States first established relationship with China in 1972, when Nixon went to China, U.S. eventually switched the diplomatic recognition from Taiwan to China, because for a long time Taiwan claimed to represent the entire China, not just Taiwan, right? Their official name is Republic of China, whereas on mainland China the official name is People's Republic of China. Each government claimed to be the sole representative of all of China, right, including
But in
Taiwan.
Taiwan, how many people are living in Taiwan?
There are about 29 million people in Taiwan.
29. And in mainland China, 1.4 billion.
1.4 billion. Yeah, 1.4 billion. And
So,
so, I mean, the scale is quite a stark contrast. And in 1970, after the U.S. Normalized its ties with China, the U.S. basically switched the diplomatic recognition, as most of the country in the world, after China was readmitted to UN in 1972. I think most of the country in the world, except for maybe a handful, all recognize China, the government in Beijing, as
yeah,
the sole legitimate government of China, and they recognize that China's claim that Taiwan is part of it. I mean,
yeah.
at least officially, there's maybe like 12 or 11 countries around the world that's recognized Taiwan as Republic of China, but that's more of a function of Taiwan's dollar diplomacy, because Taiwan provides a lot of financial aid to these countries. So it was worth it
Okay.
for these countries to maintain the fiction. Yeah.
But I think Taiwan, they maintain quite a militaristic state. And I wonder, why do they need all these weapons? Are they going to fight against their own motherland? Or it's a kind of contradiction. If you're a part of China, you're all Chinese, then you shouldn't fight against the other Chinese. That's a civil war.
Well, so in the beginning, after the nationalist government and their army went to Taiwan, their slogan was that they will come back to retake the mainland. Right?
Okay.
That's their slogan, and that's their goal. So for longest time, from 1949 up to 1980s, that was the state of relationship across the Taiwan Strait, where the official purpose of the Taiwan government is supposedly to militarily retake back mainland. But
Okay.
in the 1990s, that they eventually realized that's an unrealistic goal, to say the least. And Taiwan also underwent its own so-called democratic transition.
Yes.
It was a dictatorship under the military government. They had a military rule through 1980s, all the way to the death of dictator Chiang Kai-shek, and then in 1998, I believe 1998 or 1996, that's when Taiwan had its first election. That's when they elected their leader. So after that, I think the goal of government on Taiwan is to maintain the status quo, they don't want to be absorbed into People's Republic of China, but at the same time, they're not declaring a formal independence, because that would possibly invite China to take military action. So the goal is to maintain status quo, and that has been the way for the last 30 years.
Yeah.
But you ask a very good question. So then, why do Taiwan need to buy all these very expensive military equipment, especially F-16s from U.S.? Because that's kind of the price U.S. extract from all its client state,
Exactly.
to make all these so-called U.S. allies like South Korea, Taiwan, Japan, to buy these very expensive U.S. Weapon manufactured make weapons, because it's like the tribute, right? Like in the old times, the vassals have to pay tribute to the overlord, and
Exactly.
today that tribute is paid in the form to the military industrial complex in the United States.
Okay. Let's switch the subject. I have another subject. I think many people at least here in Denmark and other places in the world, they don't really understand the difference between the kind of society you have in China and the kind of society you have, for example, in Western Europe and USA. And
Yeah.
I've heard in most European states, they say, we are a democracy here. But in China, it is a meritocracy. Am I right?
Um,
You understand the word?
Yeah, yes.
Yes.
So there's argument to be made about that because while in China the election only happens on the village level, so they do have election in the
Mm,
local villages, but they did not have a wider election for the head of the government beyond the village level.
mm,
And what the way the Chinese leadership are trained is that they have to start at the bottom. They usually have to take a position as a village head, and then as their career advance, they get promoted to maybe a county government head, and then a city government, then a prefecture level, then to the province level. And if they prove themselves, they might be selected to be among the national leaders. That is the selection process in China internally, and it kind of reflects the old Chinese tradition, because for thousands of years, China had the imperial civil service exam, right? Which everybody, if they want to become an official of the empire, they take these tests. If they pass the test, then they get an official post. And I think
exactly. Yeah.
that kind of bureaucratic tradition is kind of passed down. I mean, even now, China is by call itself a communist state, but there's still a lot of the tradition that's handed down. I mean, that bureaucratic tradition still lives on. And in terms of a difference between the governance, right? Like United States nominally is a liberal democracy, one man, one vote. But we have seen in the last few years, last few election cycles, that the level of democracy, the real democracy, can be debated in U.S. because we really just have only two choices from two parties, either Republican or Democrats, right? And the party candidates are selected by the part from within the party. The Democratic Party supposedly have this primary where they select a Democratic candidate, and we have seen, despite the popularity of Bernie Sanders, both in 2016 election and the current 2020 election, the Democratic Party establishment didn't want him to be the candidate. So they have their own favorite candidate, like Joe Biden, right? And so, I mean, a lot of people in United States, they may not like Donald Trump, but they're not very excited about Joe Biden either, because they see Joe Biden as just another establishment figure. It's just to keep going the thing has always been, and people are fed up with the way things has been going in U.S. for the last few years. That's why they wanted to change. But now the establishment is so entrenched that it doesn't really give people the choice. You only have two choices, either Biden or Trump, neither of which are great choices. So, I mean, what's the argument for democracy in that case, right? Sure, you get to vote, but and the way that U.S. electoral system is set up, your vote actually only matters if you are in one of those so-called swing states. Because in the U.S. winner takes all system, California is always going to vote for the Democratic Party. Texas is always going to vote for Republican Party. So if you live in either of these two places, your vote will not matter. It's not significant enough to move the needle. But if you only if you live in a state like North Carolina, where my parents live, where it's a battleground state, that's like half divided half down the middle, then your vote might make a difference. I mean, this is the state of U.S. so-called democracy.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
One thing I don't understand, the idea of democracy should be that everyone should be happy because we have chosen our leaders ourselves. That is the best of every leader. We have just chosen him. But when there have been made quite a lot of sociological surveys in USA, in China, and in a lot of other countries, and they ask normal people, maybe 10,000 people or something, choosing out in an average way, how satisfied are you with the leaders in your country? Do you think they'll improve your country? Yes or no? And they have found out that USA is always in the bottom of satisfaction. I don't have the exact numbers, but maybe 25–30% of the Americans believe that the American president and the American Congress and politicians will benefit USA. If you ask the Chinese about the same question, it's about 80 or 90% that say our leadership will benefit China. We are going to a brighter future. Everything will become better. How can that be? It should be exactly the opposite. That in the democratic country, everyone were happy, and in the non-democratic meritocracy China, everyone should be unhappy.
I mean, a lot of people who have never been to China, their answer will probably be that all the Chinese people in China just been brainwashed by their government, right? And
Yeah.
I actually traveled to China last year. I still have many relatives, my auntie, cousins, uncles, all live in China. And what I found was it is true. People in China are generally much more optimistic about their future. They actually believe that tomorrow is going to be even better, and then the next year and the year after will be better than it is now. So it's quite a contrast for me coming from United States, where we seem to be stuck. We seem to be stuck where we were back in 2008 when the great financial crisis started. The stock market may have recovered, and that means just the top 1%'s wealth have recovered. We just have Jeff Bezos, the owner of Amazon, became the first man to reach like $200 million in net worth or something like that. But for most of the average American, I say the life haven't improved in the last 10 years, and the reason is that the real wage has not gone up, right? While all the prices are going up. There are people, young people, millennials in their 30s who still can't afford to buy their own house, so they have to live with their parents. And that's very common nowadays in US. I mean, there's no way they're going to be happy about that. The American dream that was being promoted to us has long been, you graduate college, you get a job, you buy a house, right? But now the housing price is so expensive, it's out of reach for many people. And whereas in China, people see their life materially improve. As I mentioned, I was born in China in 1976. I remember in 1980 when my mom bought the first black and white television for my grandparents, and all the kids in the village would come to my grandma's house to watch it because that was the only television in the village. And then, but as times went on, that black and white television got replaced by color television. Then, we started having, we didn't have refrigerator before. Then we started having refrigerator. And from that level, I mean, granted, in 1980s, China was very poor, right? It started at a very low base, but, steadily China has been improving. The life has been getting better and better. I have traveled to China every 10 years. So ever since I left, every time I go back, it's almost I went to a different country because the change happened so fast in 10 years that like you don't. It's really a sharp contrast, and I think that the impression I had my last visit in 2019 is that China now is a very livable place. The government have put in great effort to improve the environment, to clean up the pollution, right, and to build a better city planning, better parks, and I go everywhere. Kids and old people, they're playing in the parks. people are generally happy. Of course they're
Well,
happy. They're
they
optimistic.
must be, because I think they are going, I don't know the exact number, but maybe 10 million Chinese are traveling to other countries each year. And I've heard that they are going home, all of them.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Very few
I
are not coming home. If it was so awful to stay in China, they would seek asylum in Europe, USA, Denmark, and everywhere. They don't.
Yeah, in fact, that was the case in 1980s. You know, when I lived in China, I remember when I was growing up, everybody wants to leave China. Everybody wants to go abroad, go to Europe, go to United States, get a job, never come back. And if
Okay.
you have have an uncle or relative who is overseas, you're in, you know, like people are envious of you. You know, like they thought, oh wow, you have overseas connection. How can he help us to immigrate? That started to change as China became wealthier itself. You know, I remember in 1980s, it's also very difficult to leave China. In order to, my dad came to study in the United States in 1985, and then my mom joined him in 1987. I left in 1990, but the time when my mom and I left China, we have to go through layers of bureaucracy to get approval. We have to go to the community, the neighborhood committee to get a stamp. We have to go to the local police department to get a stamp. We have to go to the city government to get a stamp, and the university to get a stamp, and all these layers of bureaucracy just to get a permit says, okay, you have your passport, now you can go to United States. And today in 2019, my little cousin who was born in China in 1990, it's so easy for her. She just get her passport, go to the consulate, get the visa approval, and just buy a plane ticket on her phone. And then next thing you know, she's in United States studying, and she's not planning to stay in US because she's learning. She's in LA learning how to make movies, to make film, because Hollywood is still, you know, one of the most powerful soft power capital of United States.
Absolutely,
But
yeah.
she wanted
And
to
you
learn how.
mentioned the word. I'll ask you about soft power.
Okay.
I know there is an American geopolitical thinker. He's called Joseph Nye. He
Yeah.
has made a lot of books and theories, but his main theory is that power in the world is based on military, economics, and soft power. And his theory is that when it comes to soft power, USA is number one, and everyone else is not really working in this field. How about China? Does China have any soft power? That means power to change minds outside China.
I think we're starting to see that. I mean, one of the things you know that was making an impact is a Chinese app called TikTok, right? I mean, like a
Yeah, I've
few
heard about
years ago,
that.
yeah, a few years ago, I would never have imagined
Mhm.
a Chinese-made app will be popular with American teenagers or European teenagers. But that is a thing now. You know, a lot of Americans, millennials, and then the Zoomers, whatever name they call it, little kids, they're using TikTok, to the point that American government is considering it a national security threat because they feel that China could somehow gain data from these teenagers. So they're banning TikTok right now. They're forcing the Chinese parent company ByteDance to sell TikTok to a US company. You know, like
Yeah.
lately we have Microsoft, Walmart, and Oracle all join in trying to buy TikTok. I mean,
They know
it's
it's good business because it's so popular.
yes,
Actually, it's
exactly.
the only real competitor to YouTube,
Yeah,
because it is the same philosophy as YouTube, but much shorter, much
yes,
more easy to understand for young people.
yes.
Not some long interviews like here. It's short
Like us.
dance. It's funny. That's what young
Yeah.
people like to
Yeah.
look at. Well, very nice. Another question. When I was a young man, I studied economics, not very deep, but basic economics. And I was told in school that in the Western world, we are going to have so much success because we are building on Adam Smith. This was a British economic. He was, I looked him up at Google. He was born 1723 and he died in 1790. And his basic idea was that you get rich when you trade with other people. You know, one man is very skilled to make clothes, to make dress. Another man is very skilled to grow wheat. And today, some countries very good to make mobile phones, and others they have some other special capacities. And therefore, I don't really understand the Donald Trump idea of we want to have a trade war with China. China is the biggest producer in the whole world. And if we have a trade war with China, that means that everything that we are using here, including my beloved mobile phone, it will be more expensive.
Yeah.
What is the idea? Is Donald Trump, did he miss school when he learned about Adam Smith or what?
Yeah, I mean, the globalization phenomenon in the last 30 years has been based on this idea of Adam Smith, right? The free market capitalism.
Mm.
But I think the globalization, the benefit the globalization brought is distributed unevenly. I mean, the people at the top, like Amazon, like the Amazon boss Jeff Bezos, he get the most of the benefit. An American consumer gets some of the benefit because they get cheaper Chinese-made products. But on the other hand, it's also hollowing out the manufacturing sector in the United States. You know, a lot of factory has been offsourced to overseas, initially to other Asian countries like Japan, Korea, Taiwan. And later when China opened up, those factories all went to China. So as US transition from a manufacturing economy to a financialized economy where everything is finance, tech, or services, people who didn't have like the college education, whereas before they can just after high school they can go to a factory and work as a factory workers. And nowadays in a knowledge economy, you know, you don't, if you don't have a college degree, you get left behind. You don't have much job prospect. You work at McDonald's flipping burger, or you like work at Walmart, right, which don't pay you very well. So that has been a serious problem because it increases the gap for have and have nots, right? The rich and poor. There's some real issues in United States. And when the great financial crisis happened in 2008, a lot of the bottom half of US working class people haven't really recovered from the blow. So people are asking questions, right? So they want to assign blame, right? Who is to blame for this? And
Yeah.
the easiest thing is always blame immigrants and foreign countries. So that's what US did. Trump blames the Latino immigrants and China, because China is a foreign country. It's a country that very few people understand because so far away, yet it has such a large impact on our lives. So we can very natural to project all the problems to China. We are the way we are right now is because of China. That's how Donald Trump is able to talk his way to presidency, because he is capitalizing on the fear of ordinary Americans being left behind by globalization. And I think that's that is not the right approach, because what he's doing, he's not going to bring the jobs back to US, because a lot of the manufacturing jobs are not coming back. Even if they leave China, they're going to go to lower cost countries like Vietnam, Indonesia, India. They're never coming back to the United States.
Well, there is also another problem. You know, in the Western world, most people, they believe that we had a Cold War, and this Cold War was won by the USA. And it happened around 1990, 1991. The Soviet Union was dissolved, and therefore every kind of Marxism, communism, and things like that, it was finished. No one had ever heard about China. It was just a poor land out on the other side of the planet.
Yeah.
And then even one man called Francis Fukuyama, a very famous American, I'm not sure if he's a historian or he's an intellectual from USA.
Yes.
He wrote a very famous book called The End of History and the Last Man. The End of History came from a German philosopher called Hegel. And Fukuyama, he believed that now history is over because we have found out what is the best and the only solution to a happy country, and that is liberal democracy, as you told Carl 10 minutes ago. But according to this theory, China should be impossible because they don't have a liberal democracy in China. How can it come that China is so successful? They have level of growth 3 or 4 times the level of USA, although USA should be the top of the world. It should be paradise in this world.
Yeah, yes. I mean,
Is Fukuyama wrong, or is it just because they haven't read Fukuyama in China? What is wrong?
I think we have to keep in mind that the book, The End of History, came out, as you say, at the end of the Cold War when the Soviet Union collapsed. So at the time, it looks like America is on top, and Fukuyama just assumed that America will be on top forever. You know, the history has arrived at its end conclusion. This is the best possible world. It's basically a very self-congratulatory, like slap on the back, right?
Absolutely, yes.
For the American democracy. And as we have seen, you know, that myth, that fiction has kind of broken down since the 2008 great financial crisis. And one of the problem is the structural problem within US itself, because the difference between US and China is that Chinese leaders can afford to plan long term. Because they have a single party system and they don't have to worry about winning elections, they can have a 5-year plan, 10-year plan, and 15-year plans into the future.
Exactly.
Whereas in United States, everything is revolving around the election cycle, right? Everything is revolving around the latest news and the latest election. So what happens after 4 years or 8 years? Who cares? You know, we're not going to be in office. The people who are running for office right now, they don't care what happened after 4 years, after 8 years, they will not be here. So the focus is only on very short-term objectives. You know, US almost cannot plan long-term, like longer than 10 years.
And maybe that's the reason why infrastructure is so on such a bad level in USA and many other Western countries, because infrastructure, that's a kind of project that has a perspective of many, many years, 20, 50 years out in the future.
Yes.
Well, I have some questions here. We can't talk about everything because the time is running very fast, but I'm very interested in the question about religion. And the other day I wrote an article about the Pope in Rome and the Catholic Church. I know there is a Catholic Church in China, and they've had some problems if they are loyal to the Chinese system and so on, but they have been there for many, many years, since 16th century. And I suppose, according to the constitution, they are legal. It's no problem. But the Vatican is not recognizing China. They're only recognizing Taiwan. How do you think that impacts the Chinese people, their view on the Catholic religion?
So the Catholic Church came to China during the first European contact with China in, since the 1600s.
Yeah.
And there has always been kind of tug of war between the church on the ground in China and the church in Rome, because initially the Jesuits, they want to make a compromise with the Chinese custom of ancestor worship, and,
Yeah.
and they kind of want to hand wave, okay, like ancestor worship is okay, but the Pope in Rome put their foot down, saying, okay, no, that's heresy. We have to stop that. And so
Okay.
that created that tension was always existing. And when the communist government came to power in China, they mandated that the Catholic Church in China must swear allegiance to the Chinese government. They have to swear allegiance to China rather than to a pope in Rome, right? And so
Yeah.
that they split it off. Basically called the Catholic Church inside China. It's so-called the Patriotic Church, and the Chinese government will appoint the bishops instead of Pope.
Mm.
And that was the way until very recently. But now there's some secret talks between the Vatican and the Chinese government, and they're talking about things like possible dual recognition of bishops. So like the bishop will be approved both by the Chinese state and
Yeah.
also the Pope. So that way, give it legitimacy, to the Catholics inside China, also bring them kind of like into the fold of the larger world Catholic community.
Yeah.
So
I think that would be a good thing, but I really don't understand why the Catholic Church don't recognize China, only Taiwan. You
yeah, I mean,
mentioned a little earlier that there were only a few states that were recognizing recognizing Taiwan
yeah.
and not China. It should be impossible today to have diplomacy like that.
Yeah, I mean, one reason is a legacy of the Cold War, right? I mean, in the early days of Cold War, because the anti-communism, Taiwan was in the Western camp, so
Mm,
it's a lot easier to just recognize, the government on Taiwan rather than the government on mainland China, especially when the Chinese government still demanding a degree of control over the church on mainland,
mm,
right? Because that's
mm,
always kind of the point of contention between
yeah,
Vatican and the Chinese government. How much control each one get to exert on the churches in China? They
yeah,
need to. That power sharing agreement is always a point of contention. And so like, but lately I think especially under the present Pope, there has been some work in progress trying to reconcile their differences and
mm.
to normalize relations.
Yeah, I think so. Well, I agree personally. I agree with the Jesuits that there are a lot of things in common with Chinese culture and the Catholic religion. This to worship dead people, that's the core of Catholic religion. So it shouldn't be any strangers when they come to China. They're natural Catholics. Uh, and second, there are just as many members of its Catholic Church as there are Chinese. 1.4 billion, okay, maybe only 1.3 billion Catholics, but it's close to being the same. And they have the same system of ruling. We don't have democracy in the Catholic Church.
Yeah,
No pope has ever been elected from the Catholics. They have a
yeah,
hierarchy, very, very close to the Chinese idea. You
yeah,
said there is a democracy on the lowest level in China, in the small
villages.
cities. Yes,
Yeah,
the same in the Catholic Church. When they go to the local churches, the Catholic, they can choose their kind of I would say, I don't know what they call it, some people to
yeah,
represent them on the local level. There are so many things in common, but
yes,
well, let's hope it will work out, because will be a huge force. 1.3 billion Catholics, 1.4 billion Chinese. That's quite a lot of people. It's
yeah,
close to half of the world population.
yeah.
So, yeah, let's see what happens. The last subject I'll ask you about is what I suppose you know everything about it. Belt and Road. Well, this is the Chinese idea of making infrastructure from China into the whole world. And the idea, as I understand it, is to make trading cheaper. Because when I
Yes.
buy, once again, I take my beloved phone here, it has one price if I buy it in China and another price if I buy it in Denmark.
Yes.
It's more expensive in Denmark, of course,
Yes.
because there's transportation. So
Yep.
therefore, we want transport to be as cheap as possible. And that
Yes.
is the basic idea, as I understand it, with Belt and Road. Am I right or wrong?
Yes, I mean, the whole idea of Belt and Road Initiative of China is to build out the infrastructure, the ports, the roads, railroads to connect different parts of the world. Because China does recognize it has a huge manufacturing capacity, and now because of the trade war with Donald Trump, it knows maybe U.S. is not the most reliable trading partner. So it probably makes sense to diversify your customer base to the rest of the world, and especially Europe. Right. I mean, the end goal of Belt and Road is Europe. Like one end is in China, the other end is in Europe, and everywhere in between. And I think it benefits both China and the world to have increased connectivity, because I think, as we mentioned in the show earlier, more trade, more connectivity is better for our world. We get what we need, and it's better to trade than to have war, right? I think we can all
Exactly.
agree with that.
But what countries in Europe is mostly connected to the Belt and Road at the moment? Because I know there are voices in European politics saying, inspired by Donald Trump, no, 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 don't connect to Belt and Road. The Chinese will conquer Europe and so on and so forth.
Yeah, right now, China was making way most in the Europe, EU's peripheries, right? So we have
Mm,
the Chinese port in Greece,
yeah,
and then we have like a Chinese building out infrastructure in Belarus. And now there's some color revolution going on in
yeah.
Belarus, right? And then the idea is from Belarus to Poland, eventually to Germany, right? And then at least that's the goal. Like right now, there's already a railroad link between Europe and China, so they can ship high value goods like cell
Mhm.
phones on railways, from heartland of China to Europe in, I think, 2 weeks, rather than, I think, if they take the ocean, go around Africa, it takes like a month or
Okay.
two, whereas on
Yeah,
railroad it takes 2 weeks, and it's still
yeah,
cheaper than the flight, right? It's
yeah,
just, yeah.
yeah. But I think no matter if they make a color revolution in Belarus, and other places, they still want to have cheap mobile phones. So,
Yes.
so it won't make Belt and Road outdated, no matter who is in power. Uh,
Yes.
because this is economics. Everyone wants to have a cheap and good products to be able to trade.
Yes.
Well, I think the last thing I'll ask you about is more general. If you can imagine yourself as the leader of all young people in Europe, what would you tell them?
Oh wow,
And
that's I did not expect that. I did not expect that offer. But okay, I'm being put on the spot here. So what I would like to tell the young people is that we can do better. They may not be satisfied with the way the society are, but they should look at it as an opportunity to improve, to rather than seeing the water half, the glass half empty, they should see the glass half full. We there's still a lot of room for improvement within the European society itself, that we should really concentrate our resources, trying to improve our own education, healthcare, how the society is taking care of our young and elderly. right? And maybe more independence from say like hegemonic power like US, right? And like really focus on what's good for Europe. You know, because a lot of times during the entanglement with the NATO politics is like it has for a long time, the European politics get subjugated to the US interests. Maybe it's time to ask what is good for the Europeans, right? And that's what we should focus on.
Yeah, and I even have a young relative. He has just finished his examination, his graduate examination from the gymnasium in Denmark. And maybe he would like to travel around in the world. Maybe he would like to start up a business. Maybe he would like to find a woman to marry from another country. My grandfather, he married a woman from Switzerland. He had a very happy life. And do you think it would be a good idea for my relative, 19, 20 years old, to go to China and start up a career there?
Oh yes, definitely. Well, I would recommend it because China is the next frontier of growth and opportunity. I mean, China is still growing. It's still one of the fastest growth economy in the world. I don't see it slowing down anytime soon. There's what the trade war started by Donald Trump is going to do. It's going to force China to devote even more resources to do research and development and to develop its technological capabilities. So I'm expecting a lot of great things from China in the short, mid, and long term.
Okay. Well, Carl Zha, thank you for your wisdom and everything you have told me and our listeners.
Okay.
So thank you for your time and for your wisdom.
Thank you. Thank you very much.